With a couple special elections coming up on April 1st in the not-so-great state of Florida that could shift power in the House, I'm doing this week's political figure episode just a little different. Because there's less extensive information available for these candidates than there is for more established candidates, I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of a couple candidates who are running against each other. First off, we've got Randy Fine, the Republican running for Florida's 6th, and you already can't trust him because this man, not fine. I mean, a soft 4 at best, and if you can't be honest about that, what else is he lying about? Now, Randy was born in Arizona, but being too trashy for Tucson, it was only a matter of time before he ended up in Florida. But along the way, he went and got one of those elitist bachelor's degrees from Harvard, and then went on to be a casino executive. And we all know that there's no one more upstanding than the people who run casinos. Never any corruption or crime in those particular industries. However, he failed at bankrupting any of those casinos, and if you don't bankrupt at least half a dozen casinos, are you even qualified to be in government? And when Not So Fine finally found his way to Florida, he ended up running for the Florida State House in 2016, where he has served ever since. Since being a state rep, he's used his power and position to threaten organizations that he feels has slighted him or has personal grievances with. He has threatened to pull public funding from the Palm Bay Magnet High School, the Brevard Zoo. The motherfucker threatened to pull funding from the West Melbourne Special Olympics. He's basically like a douchier version of Gary Barker from The Ringer. He's used his public position of power for personal vendettas so often that a Florida ethics board found him culpable for ethics violations. Do you know how unethical you have to be for Florida to be like, dude, too fucking much? He also threw such a temper tantrum in a hearing over election paperwork disputes that a judge held him in contempt of court and forced him to take anger management because of it. Again, in Florida, where a dude eating another dude's face is just a fucking Tuesday, this motherfucker is getting court-mandated anger management. He's also the motherfucker who sponsored that bill to punish Disney for just having the audacity to use their First Amendment rights to disagree with Florida legislation that just said, like, you know, trans people and gay people aren't allowed to exist. So this motherfucker is super xenophobic, and he loves Israel. In fact, he is such a huge fan of Israel removing brown kids from this plane of existence that he arranged to have regards from Randy Fine written on artillery shells that were fired on Gaza. As always, Florida, you know how to pick some real fucking winners. Anyway, the list goes on and on with just how disgusting and atrocious this primordial scumbag actually is, but I think you get the point, right? Florida? Right? Right? Now this motherfucker wants to crawl out of the petri dish he's been growing in down in Florida and infect the U.S. House of Representatives. Okay, Florida, we don't need that shit. None of us needs that shit. You don't need that shit. We've got enough of your trash floating around in the swamp water of D.C. right now as it is. But on the bright side, Florida, you've got a great opportunity to not elect a douchebag for once. So take some deep breaths, guys. You can do it. I know it's hard. You really love the douchebags, but you can do it. Because running against Reptile Randy over here is Josh Weil, a single father of 2 and public school teacher. You know, a normal fucking human. Now, I know he's not as exciting as the super villains who are autographing bombs for brown kids that y'all seem to be so obsessed with, but like, he's a real dude. And he wants to do shit like make healthcare more accessible and affordable for you. He doesn't believe that grandma should lose her social security so Bezos can get another tax break. He wants your kids to have access to a quality education because, you know, he's a school teacher, not a warmongering casino executive. Yeah, he's just a regular working class guy who doesn't want to use kids with Down syndrome as leverage to get back at people who hurt his feelings. Now, Florida, if on April 1st you elect Josh Weil to Florida's 6th and Gabe Vallimont to Florida's 1st, we will tie Congress. And this is good because then we won't have somebody who represents us by spending his time screwing over special needs kids and writing love notes on Mr. Clean ethnic eraser artillery shells. And it'll also help restore some checks and balances of power, you know, the way the founders intended. So don't fuck us again, Florida, okay? Here's what we need you to do. If you're not registered to vote, you need to do that this month. You have to be registered before March 3rd. And that means I need y'all to plan to do that now because I lived in Florida for 8 painfully long years and I know what Florida time is. If you say you're going to do something at 10 o'clock in the morning, you'll show up at, you know, 3 p.m. next Tuesday, if at all. So make sure you get registered to vote right now. And once you do that, make sure you mark your calendar for April 1st to get your ass to the poll and vote for Josh Weil in Florida's 6th or Gabe Vallimont in Florida's 1st. And if you live outside of those districts and you can't vote in them, you can still help by going to National Ground Game. This organization is working to get people registered to vote. They're working to fundraise for these candidates. They're door knocking. They're organizing volunteers to do phone banking, to write postcards. Anything you can do to help, they will point you in the right direction. And believe me, you want to help because we do not want Reptilian Randy representing us in the U.S. House of Representatives. So if you're in those districts, make sure you're registered. Make sure you know when and where you need to vote. And if you're not, do whatever you can do to help because these races are important and will have global impacts. And Florida, please, 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 just don't do a Florida this time, okay? Just once, can we just not do a Florida for us? Please. Okay, thanks.